So we skied at, at Cafe. And then sometimes
do the roll call.
Could you call the roll, please?
Yep. Lance.
Here.
Mitch.
He's on remotely.
All right. Mr. Groden. All right. Mr. Hyde.
This is Mitch. I'm here.
Awesome. Arthur's not here yet. Mr. Reed.
Here.
I'm here. Jessica, I think will be back. This
In the building.
Yeah, I saw her, so.
Okay. Any additions, corrections to the agenda? Anything to add? We'll adopt the agenda as is. And public comment. Anyone in the room wish to make a comment, Mr. Reiser?
no, but thank you.
Okay.
Nice to meet you all.
Anyone on the Zoom?
Me too.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. This is Mitch.
Oh, Mitch, go ahead.
The meeting minutes I found tended to emphasize the comments from the audience, I guess, not the participants. Very lengthy comments. And I thought that was kind of disappointing. Oops, because the chief gave a very nice talk and there was a lot of discussion and none of that is covered in the comments. I mean, in the minutes. So I think if we want to have it very brief like that, then the comments from the audience or from the others that attended the meeting on Zoom like I did, but are not parts of the committee should be very brief also. That's just my comment. I felt that it really, it's amazing if you read this, the agenda. I don't know what other people feel like, but it seemed like there's a lot of discussion. It's not covered at all.
And I'm trying to put that together because the body of the meeting and all the discussions back and forth are not covered in the minutes. If there was a presentation, that would have been attached. And then I think did you have a presentation?
I just had 2 slides.
2 slides.
Yeah.
So, and typically the presentation, et cetera, are attached to the minutes. But,
plus, we're only required to have findings, like votes, those kind of things.
I'm sorry, what?
Votes,
Yep.
whether something passes or doesn't pass, those are the what's required by the Open Meetings Act to be in the minutes. That's about it.
Right.
And anything extra is
Who's extra?
the public.
Is extra. Yep. And we should, we'll see what we can do, Mitch. I'm not sure that putting the entire transcript of the meeting in the minutes would be appropriate, but certainly any presentations, any slides, and perhaps a 3 or 4 sentence description of, whatever was said. But public comment is different. It's treated differently, I should say, in traditionally. But all right. Point noted.
Thank you. Thank you. It just when I looked at it, it's shocking to me that usually when I'm involved with meetings, I can understand if that's your tradition and that if you include all the attachments and all the presentations to the minutes. But the public comment number 10 here was very, very lengthy and goes on and on and on for pages.
Well,
And that's okay, I guess, if that's not recorded.
well, it's, number one, it's not, well, it is recorded, but number two, it's not required. But we have, or certain committees have in the past been criticized for not having the complete transcript of public comment. When I was deputy clerk and a clerk would be on vacation, I would be taking the minutes of board meetings and I would often summarize a 5-minute, well, at the time they were 5-minute presentation to 2 or 3 sentences. And I tried to condense what the person said and get the meaning across. But I certainly did not do word for word, which is, I think, what now is attempting to be done, at least from board meetings. So, but, all right, thanks,
Okay.
Mitch. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment? Or any public comment?
We do Rob Pattinson. Rob, you can go ahead.
Rob.
Thanks. Next is Jillian. Jillian, you can go ahead.
Good morning. Okay, a few things. I'm sorry, I missed the name of the person, and I think it was Mitch that had brought up about the minutes and what to be included or asking for. So what other committees we have been doing is including the video link in the minutes. And we have, should be on the township website. If not, Rob Pattinson records all the meetings. So that way it can be pretty hard to put everything into the minutes. And, you know, Bob Hyde is correct that by law, there's very few things that need to be included. So we found that including the video link has appeased both the members and the public. With that said, so I have a question. I have not, I've been watching the videos and keeping track here of the fire committee. Because as you know, it's the fire department is very important to me and also to residents for our safety. So regarding, I don't know if this was brought up, but the county and state has regulations and rules for emergency and fire, the sheriff and whatnot. So I don't know if that was mentioned because some of our ideas, they may not meet the standards of the state and the county, or there's things that we can and cannot do. So if we could talk about that a little bit. And also, you know, I really appreciate Bob Groden and him being the watchdog for our tax funds, you know, taxpayer funds, because, you know, of course, we don't want to overspend. We don't want to irresponsibly spend. However, we also don't want to keep our money so tight that we ignore the needs and of our growing township. And 4 years ago, I got involved with the fire department because I had heard that our building was just falling apart. And it came from a sheriff deputy that I talked with, and how they couldn't even work in the building because of the mold. They got sick. They ended up working out of Dexter. So looking at that building, and it was not maintained for a very long time. And we need to make sure rightfully so, there was a lot of low morale with our firefighters, excuse me. So there's got to be a balance here. We have a growing township. I can think of at least 5 developments that are coming in right now. And I guesstimated that there's 1,000 new residents. So we have to, plan for the future, as well as keeping everything intact and spending responsibly. Thank you.
All right. Moving on, approval of the minutes. Any changes or adoptions or corrections or changes to the minutes? Any errors that we need to fix? All right, then. If there's no objection, we'll accept the minutes as is and move on to communication and or correspondence.
I actually have 2 things, or actually one, I'm sorry. ISO, we've been discussing ISO in this committee a little bit. I was actually had ISO reach out to me yesterday. They've revised their schedule. They're now on a 5-year schedule, and we'll be reviewing our department in December.
In December?
Yes.
Next month?
Yep.
This December?
Correct.
So you look forward to maybe getting a 5?
I'm hopeful with some of the improvements we can get those extra points and be a 5. Yes. He's got a whole laundry list of stuff for me to provide him. And yeah, I'm hopeful that the improvements made in the last 4 years will help improve our score.
Do they not come out and make an on-site visit?
They do.
They do.
They will be on site with us. Yep.
All right.
Got a lot of documents to prepare and present.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, Chief, I think you're up. Item 7.
So I've got, I'm actually be super quick today. I've put 2 documents in front of you guys today. One is a portion of Mr. Perry's analysis. And I think I was not clear in how I drafted my spreadsheet. The numbers that I put across is total number of emergency response employees. So you'll see that at that line, total hires is a cumulative total. It's not per station. So if you were to pick the option 4, there would be a total of 45 people in emergency response at the end.
And both buildings.
Correct. Yep.
And that would be the same with 33, not 30?
So those indicate steps of how we're to hire people. And by the time but at the conclusion of 3, we could be at 33 people, option 2, 24. And that's just a step of different hiring.
Okay, so in your columns on your spreadsheet, it wasn't per building,
it was there was.
All right.
That was a cumulative total with some other dates down there.
All right.
They kind of corresponded with the dates. Like I think if you look at option 3, 2028, we could get up to 30 people, and then 2029 would get up to 33 people through the hiring process.
Oh, so
if you were to, on option 2, if you were to split or allocate between the 2 firehouses, the 24, what would it be?
Or it'd be 4 and 4.
what?
4 on duty per day. It'd be 50-50. It'd be 12 and 12 there.
Okay, so 12 and 12. And
Yeah, these are
33 would be split. In option 3, 33 would be split.
15 and the remainder.
18. Mark or Chief, is it just me or looking at admin? Is that down? Is that just a typo? Your payroll.
Oh, yeah, that might be a typo.
Okay.
Might be
I was like,
across all the way
it's
through.
odd that it went down.
What, 505,000 straight across?
Just under admin itself, so 2 rows up from that.
Yep, good catch, that's right. Should be
Okay.
0.33.
Oh, yeah,
across.
yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure it was constant, not
Yeah.
somehow we got a cost reduction out of it.
And 303 straight across, right?
33-0 straight across.
Okay. Those look like pension.
Yeah, at the very end, we wanted to, we could ramp up our prevention division to an additional full-time equivalent.
Can you describe the two total payroll /1, estimated payroll /2?
This is Mark's document, this is something. he-
Oh, Mark, I'm sorry. Can you explain those two grade sections, please?
Right, well, the footnotes, not,
Oh,
Yeah, I just wanted to correct that one.
let me,
okay. Is this available to the Zoomers? You know, is this part of the package?
No, that was not.
Oh, sure, okay.
That was just Mr. Perry's recommendation. I wanted to make the.
footnote 1 means figures supplied by chief or may vary slightly from the estimates that I provided in previous.
Okay. The /1 is footnote 1, /2 is footnote 2.
Right,
Okay, I understand. All right,
it's a financial,
all right.
footnote everything.
Well, yeah, I thought this, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that now. We should,
And I have a couple points of clarification. I reviewed everybody's recommendations and I hope I have them pretty adequately reflected in this piece of paper here. I do have a couple questions. I wasn't sure, Mr. Hyde and Mr. Perry. Would your final recommendation include a staffed rescue or not? Both indicated that in the future is a Wagner station is appropriate. Would we want a fire vehicle there and the rescue or just a fire vehicle?
Oh, yeah, you'd staff and supply or equip the building as required. There's no sense in having a building without equipment.
Correct.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
I thought that was just assumed.
You know, my question was more of a distinction. Should we be staffing a rescue as well? Okay. Okay. So with that, you know, from what I've gleaned from the committee, the majority do wish to recommend a Wagner station.
Before we go on to that discussion, move on to that, let me address option 1. Option 1, which I'm assuming is Bob's 1.5.
I think Bob had suggested staff Zeeb and then build a remote station for EMS. Is that correct, Mr. Groden? Yeah.
So this is Mitch. Okay, this is Mitch. Is it possible for you to email me that piece of paper or is it on the website? I never received it.
Oh, no, I apologize.
I can scan it, I can email it to you
Okay.
in just a second.
Ryan's gonna take a picture and email it to you now.
Okay, thank you very much.
I apologize, Mitch.
So
fine.
starting at the bottom.
Specifically this sheet,
working
correct?
up,
This
Oh,
one.
that sheet.
starting at the bottom, working up, does the add EMS division, Bob, does that go with 1.5 or?
We could let Mr. Groden expand on that further. What's
Down here, Bob, this is kind of hanging.
Well, I'm not so
below.
much as saying add a division. I mean, they're gonna be firefighters anyway. So,
Cross-trained or whatever.
yeah, my real suggestion is, I think we can set up a remote site quicker and see how that impacts the 39% metric that we have. And see how that impacts the service to the township. And you still gain 2 firefighters. And they can be first responders, as a matter of fact. If you have an incident in that side of town, depending on what side of town we select a remote site, they can get there earlier within the 6 minutes and start preparing and also radio back the truck that's coming. Here's what we've got, so everyone is prepared, and that ought to save some time. But to me, it gets at a lot quicker than building another station. And also, I'm going back to the data that says 60% of our calls are medical calls.
Okay, so I got clarification. Add EMS division. That's just breaking EMS out of fire and setting it on its own as its own division. That's what that means.
Well, if they're not a division.
No, I'm not.
We talked last time that they can't be a division.
Yeah, all right. Creating a separate division, I think as I made it clear, I wasn't supportive of that, a separate division, because you then have two administrative staff reporting up to a.
What would be a better word than division that we could have?
No, that's the right way to put it.
No, that wouldn't be Bob Groden's position.
Oh, no, Bob wouldn't be supportive of that, would you?
Not a division,
Yeah.
because you don't need
Okay.
you don't want the infrastructure that has to go with the division.
All right, in the 1.5, I understand the 1.5, but before we jump from or elevate from 1 to 1.5, in my earlier workup was the 1.25. The 1.25 is similar to Bob's proposal, but other than either going out and leasing a separate facility at some other location, and that is taking the space that is consigned, not leased, consigned to the sheriff department at no cost, at 1,800 square feet, and putting the EMS division, not the division, the EMS.
Utilize the space for our needs.
For our use, right. You know, maybe we didn't have the use for it, but certainly we have a need for that space now to accommodate 1.5. But that's 1.25 because you wouldn't be paying rent. You wouldn't have to renovate to any great extent. You know, even though my 1.25 option does have capital for renovation, I just threw in 300. It was like, I don't know, $200 or $100, $120 a square foot. You know, it may not need it, but at least it's the placeholders there. But everything else in 1.5 would be in 1.2. It's just a matter, you know, do we go vertical with another 2 million, or do we just move into the space that we already have? We don't have to pay rent, and you know, capital requirements would be a lot less. So that's my position on 1.5. It's just I support it, but let's utilize space that we have that's available. I looked at the sheriff contract, and I couldn't find anywhere in the agreement that says the township shall provide at no cost available space that the township already owns. On 2, I support 2. Eventually, we're going to, if not now, we need that second. I think that the need has been demonstrated, but I would like to ramp up to, in order to get the immediate EMS or to service 60% of our customer calls, we need it now, and it's quicker to get it, I would think, quicker to get into Z, and then ramp up to 2, and then ramp up to 3 or 4, whichever. But it would get us 1.5 or 1.25 would get us to that ramp up a lot quicker. Because it's going to take 4 to 5 years to build that second firehouse.
Building staff, right?
And staff and equipment. So 3 or 4, you know, the Oldsmobile or the Cadillac, you know, eventually we'll get there. But do we need to get there in the first step? I don't think so.
Nowadays, it's the Prius or the Tesla.
Right. Okay. and the other thing that was built into all of the options was doing the land bank now. Doing the land bank now so that
Even in 1.5? Even in 1.5?
1.25 in one, because as we're growing, the elimination of the acceptable sites is going to be a lot quicker because the real estate market is going to gobble it up. That's one. Two, the real estate market is going to force market appreciation. And it's going to cost us a lot more. Even if we just buy and land bank it now and use it for a short-term park space, whatever. Because I'm assuming there's going to be a 4, 5, 6 acre site. I don't know, but and again, 3 and 4, I don't have a particular feeling about either one because eventually we're going to get there.
I have a couple of things to say about that, but Bob had his hands. Oh, Chief.
Yeah, to answer one of your questions, reading their sheriff's contract now. The sheriff agrees to consult with the township to determine where any substation may be located to assist the sheriff's department personnel in fulfilling its responsibilities under this contract. The parties agree that the township shall provide and maintain any substation.
Okay.
Shall provide and maintain.
Is that in the original lease agreement or is that in subsequent amendments?
This is 2012 document that's been amended. So in theory, yes, that space could come available. However, the township would need to provide additional space.
So during COVID or during the mold period, when they moved to Dexter, did you have to pay for that space?
That predates me.
Yeah, that they didn't really move to Dexter. So a couple of them moved to Dexter. They still always had control of that space. And
There's like, I think the lieutenant actually stayed in the space and worked out of that space.
yeah,
The lieutenant is the one that left because their time in the building is like a 9 to 5, 8 hours, where the road deputies still use it to stop by, bathroom breaks, take a little lunch break if they had the time, and then they'd get back out.
and I would just say, I think that, one, the sheriff's contract is up right now. We need to negotiate it. And these are the sort of things that have always been handshakes, Mark. And we do pay for all of the space.
Yep.
I don't know if that's something to be negotiated. What I would hesitate to move them. We would have to have a very, very good plan about where they would go. I think that where they are now does make sense, but I'm torn because I know that, that would be the most cost-effective option for us capital-wise, but I can't imagine where in the world they would go.
To that point, and to my point, putting the additional firefighters or /EMS people in that space doesn't get us the response times reduced in the southeast, which is what Bob is wanting. So I don't think taking that over to put the people in there is going to resolve that short-term advantage that you're referring to while we're trying to get a Wagner station built. That's why in my recommendation, I said I wanted to go right for the Wagner station at the same time we were improving the Z road personnel and staffing. So it's the way we get to the end result that I differ on. But if we don't have either what Bob is suggesting as a temporary, or we have the permanent Wagner station, we aren't going to get the response times. So Bob's going about it one way. I was wanting to get the Wagner Road station as soon as we can. It's going to take a couple of years. So how we get there, perhaps we could put a temporary accommodation in place on Wagner Road. I don't know, or in an area near there. But if we don't get that Wagner station, in the long run, we won't have the times.
Well,
So just putting them in next door won't resolve that.
yeah, that was my comment basically, is that fiscally, it works, but in reality, it doesn't solve the problem of the six-minute response time. But that's number one. Number two, where do we put the sheriffs? I mean, it would be great if we could put them in the county building right next door, but I don't think they have room. And it sounds like we are obligated, we shall provide space for them. So if we kick them out of there, we have to put them somewhere. So, but the more we talk about this, the more I realize I think your 4 to 5 years for Wagner might be a little extreme, but certainly 2 or 3. And meanwhile, we have 2 or 3 years or 5 years of over 6-minute response time to the southeast and the northeast. And so it sounds like, and I don't know how we do this. We can't just put up a tent and put 2 medical guys in a tent somewhere along Wagner Road. But Bob has a real good point. I can see this being a 1.75, if you will, that we immediately, if that's possible, station 2 people where they're needed or close to where they're needed. It's close to the southeast. I don't know how we do that because, I don't know that there's space with bedrooms and a garage that'll fit at least a rescue. But this would be on the way to 2.
Yeah.
Like a temporary thing on the way to 2.
My thought on whether it's 1.5 or 1.25 is the priority here is to better the 60% customer service that currently we're realizing. So for me, I don't care where it's at. Why? Because I want to increase the 60% service availability, support that. And then if it's 6% or 6 miles or less or more, I think that's secondary to improving the customer service piece of it.
Well, go ahead.
And you're eventually going to get there with 2. That's the crux of what I'm talking about.
Go ahead.
I think that the 60% you're talking about is the medical call.
The EMS, that's what Bob's.
Yes, but that really is just data that's behind the response times.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the response times that's the real, it's the fly in the ointment that gets us a bad rating. It isn't that 60% of them are medical. It's just that, the accumulation of all that gets us our average too high.
Yeah, we can have 50 medical guys here, but if we don't get there until after 6 minutes, it doesn't help us at all.
So,
But that's the point in having a remote site.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
so we
you
gotta
talk
get the
about,
response times down is the whole thing. And you're saying focus on the medical.
Well, that's what's option 1.5 is all about, is focus on the medical, because that's 60% of your business.
Okay, but then here's where we have to break it down. How much does 60% of our business get responded to in 6 minutes or less?
Don't have metrics to break that down, unfortunately.
Ryan, you were gonna say something?
Theory, once again, going back to having a remote site at Liberty and Wagner Road, let's say one of the ideas I had, there's 2 ideas that immediately come to mind. If there was some way we could make it work with MIHQ, which I have no idea if that would work, if that could work. That's a thought. There's a building there. The other thing is I think 242 Church, which is basically right there, had some sort of it looked a little bit like a salt tent for a while. They were using it for COVID testing.
Yeah.
Obviously, we would need something more weather resistant and robust than that, but there was parking lot space that could be used or temporarily transformed over a period of time to accommodate something in that location. Considering they were willing to do it for COVID testing, that had a much larger footprint at one point.
Put a remote site in
Yeah,
there.
for a remote site. Yeah.
I'm thinking more like a dentist office.
Like a what?
A dentist office.
Oh.
A room could be for a couple of cots or beds and another room for
There's a brand new dentist building right there.
And the space they vacated is for lease. That's my dentist, by the way.
Where'd they vacate from?
From, you were just across the street on Wagner.
Oh, okay, all right.
Next to the Precision, I can give you
Okay.
the address.
The Libwag Business Park.
Right across from 9.
Yes.
So with Chief, with the coding there for the EMS stuff, obviously the NFIRS is more up your alley, I put in the report. So does that include car crashes or is that just strictly EMS calls? Because
most of our car crashes are coded 300 series as well.
so that would fall into the 60% EMS then?
Yep.
So it's not counting car crashes and
That 60% includes car crashes.
that's what I'm getting at. We're focusing more on like just EMS calls, like medical, chest pain, stuff like that. I think we're not thinking that.
No,
It's also, is carbon monoxide instance involved in that too?
I think those are hazardous condition calls, like a 500.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
So I think it's not all just EMS. I think it's
the jaws of life.
potentially, I mean, a couple of, yeah.
When we receive a report of car crash, we dispatch an engine with jaws on it, yes.
Yep. So,
And the rescue?
Yes, if it's staffed.
so that was gonna be my point. You're only taking care of transport from the scene, but not the getting the people out of
For
situation.
mitigation of the scene, yes.
Yep.
But also, I think what we're trying to do is reinvent the wheel. I think other municipalities, when they've grown, have had these same issues of crap, this skirt over here is expanded for whatever reason. And I don't think they put just like a little, I don't want to say lean-to or something like that. I think what they do is they build a station. I'm sure where you came from, they only had one. The south side started getting busier and I built a second station. So for me, it's either like option 2 or 3. I mean, I think we've already invested enough money into Zeeb to go up and I think not be fiscally responsible for the citizens that live here, that pay taxes and business owners, stuff like that. I mean, I get where Bob's coming from, trying to be fiscally responsible, but like I said, I think we're trying to reinvent the wheel. In most places, there's a fire station, there's a larger apparatus and a rescue or ambulance or whatever you want to call it, quick response EMS vehicle. So
Let's, Mark, forgive me, let's put money aside. How do we solve getting the 6-minute response, under 6-minute responses to the extremes of the township? Quickly, how can we do that in less than a year? Or can we do that in less than a year?
Closer to where the surface area, like, you want to improve.
Decentralized, yeah.
Right.
I think it'd be tough.
Well,
Big time.
How, well, is there a way we could go,
Well, I think 1.5, it gets you a more immediate, you're getting close to the scene, what facility you move into on a temporary basis, you're closer to the scene. So it does bring the greater than 6 minute down, it does.
Do you get the product from
And
the
then-
first vehicle getting there?
Yes.
So if we just get an ambulance there and they start stabilizing the situation, we've already got the response time down? Even though we
No, it's
can't-
for our first unit to arrive on scene. Yeah.
Okay, so it's first vehicle on scene that would get it down, just with an ambulance.
Yep, and just over half our calls
That didn't resolve
with an
the whole
ambulance, yes.
situation.
the issue is, of course,
What?
is an ambulance enough
Well, it wouldn't be in some
in
situations,
some situations?
but it would get our time down.
I'd argue putting our backup engine there would cover 100% of the calls.
But if our backup engine at the remote site, you mean?
It'd get our time down, but what about the service?
Exactly. It
And that's
would,
one of our points was
Life is,
what service we want to provide, and that's part of it too. For
Do
certain
we
calls.
have a backup engine? Do we have a backup engine?
Yes, we have a backup engine. It's licensed to respond to medical calls.
What would it take to house that and approve?
A garage that would fit it. There's MIOSHA requirements for any fire station, and it would be considered a fire station, so we'd have to meet all MIOSHA requirements. Vehicle exhaust extraction, living quarters.
Special laundry for required?
Yeah, I could live without that because we can always come back here to decontaminate it. I'm good with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
You're describing a second stage.
It is, but it's a temporary, not all
I see the point, right? You know, if we were able to do something temporary to deal with the response times we're having as we work through a building, permanent housing.
And I just want to say, you've got question marks against my name in a couple of places because I wasn't clear. My position is we got to start building that second station immediately. Now, if we go into a temporary structure that is, we find one that's suitable, that's available now, that would be a good way to implement this idea of getting the service now, because it's going to take 2-3 years to build. But if we don't build, we're always going to have temporary.
Always going to be 2 or 3 years down the road if we don't start eventually. Or
Do we have a structure that meets those needs in the southeast?
I don't know. I can look at that.
I mean, it can't be a dentist office. It's going to be a garage.
I'm sorry?
There's going to be a garage that can house the truck and.
Well, and it'd probably be several $100,000 to remodel it for bedroom space, exhaust space, equipment storage, whatever. So it's not gonna be free, and we're probably gonna have to pay a monthly rent.
As well as renovation costs.
Reservation costs, right? So that's $400,000 to get it running, up and running.
I see you thinking, what's
Pull a number out of
I'm
the
just trying to think of what commercial buildings besides MIHQ and stuff that actually have like a garage already.
the Liberty thing across from Nye Funeral Home, or that, I don't know if there's any vacancy in that, probably not.
So I would think that with that building's building classification, we can't sleep in it.
Because it's an industrial building, yeah.
Yeah, so it.
That's gonna be my other answer, once I move out of my building, that space will be available as 2 grade level doors, which are 13-foot clearance, so from a functionality standpoint, after renovation, it could work, but it's also the wrong part of township.
Right. Yeah, and that's the other question, would it be actual building code to house people in here? I don't know.
That's a good question.
So, getting back to this sheet, when I interrupted, sorry.
No.
Let's pick it up where you were at before we started this dialogue.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out what everybody's, just clarify the 2 points, which I think we have now. And, you know, I think this is what's getting us to our end goal here of a report to the township, right? You know, I think everyone's articulated where they think we should be. And then it's to talk about a report. I threw together a couple of bullet points here, just what we should include in a report and how it should look. And I don't know if that's a discussion we want to have or if it's right.
December 1st is coming quick, so
Yeah.
put it out there.
So yeah, my thoughts are like we start a report first of all with objectives of the committee, recognition of the members, overview of options and timeline, a review of the costs associated, a section with the committee's recommendations, including everybody's opinion, and then a conclusion. And I think we'd be appropriate to attach everybody's written recommendation if that's okay, just as appendices.
What about a proposed, and maybe this is going too far, because it assumes that the board will actually accept one of our options or whatever. How about including a proposed ballot language?
Yeah.
And that ballot language would have to go along with what we propose. And I would hope that we actually propose something and not give them 4 options to pick from.
Yeah, I think that's driven by our recommendation and Mark's work with the financial aspect of it, right?
Yeah. But when we attach the financial piece to it, we need a one-on-one because the template was designed to be a template to throw a bunch of scenarios out. The numbers are as close to the numbers I gave you, but there were also some holes in the numbers that, quite frankly, based on my 40 years working in real estate and tax, and construction, I just threw those numbers in there. So those holes are plugged with my numbers, not maybe consensus numbers. And then, of course, one thing that the world needs to understand in construction, you don't know what the final number is until you receive.
Until you move in.
Until you move in, but more importantly, your RFP is drafted, sent out for bid, and your bids come back. And presumably the contract will say not to exceed. And of course, there are change orders along the way because I haven't experienced architects' drawings, structural or civil, that haven't had oops in it. And the oops cost money.
Which is why your millage rate is higher than you project it will be. You have a reserve, you can draw it.
And in my paper yesterday, I added that last paragraph that says, to your point, is that you have a throttle or govern in that ballot language that says, all right, this whatever millage we ask for, that in the event that you have that it accrues cash reserve greater than the township's 9-month, but it also gives the board of trustees a little room if you need to go over the 9 months, but with just cause. So I think it needs to, that language needs to be in there because as the tax base continues to grow, it's going to throw off excess cash. In the event that you're spending, your approved adopted budget permits the increase or decrease in spending. That's going to be your variable. That's going to be your variable. So all of us have to look at that template very closely. Whatever, they're all 4 options. Or 5 options.
So we have to convince the board that what they're going to vote for is, will achieve what they think it will.
The goal, right.
Yeah, exactly.
At the bottom of Andy's spreadsheet.
And I think what we need to do is develop the pros and cons of each plan. At least a high level, because right now we're dealing with a significant con of a plan we developed a couple of years ago and we're not told about. Wrestling with that problem right now. So I think the board needs to know, like option 2, 3, and 4 is several years down the road. Option 1, 5, we have challenges with occupancy and zoning for occupancy and storage space. Whatever it is, we need to put the positives and the negatives for each, not necessarily all of them, but the ones we know about, we should put down, obviously. We should hide them.
And what about the 1.5 million?
I'm sorry?
That's what he was.
1.5 million.
That's what he brushed up against.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying.
You didn't quite say it out loud, that we're presuming that is wiped off the.
That's spot on, Bob.
Yeah. You just didn't say it. This time.
I know we discussed potentially buying land for alternative stations. Is that something else we should probably suggest to them? I know Mark, you brought up a few times that it's never gonna be cheaper than what it is today. So I don't know if that's something else you want to suggest.
Absolutely. Land banking is critical.
I'm sure probably a good investment too for them down the road if it ends up not happening and then they go sell it off or so on and so forth. But
we do have a piece of property we could sell in order to buy another piece of property. Yes. I don't know whether or not the township would do that. But the township actually did buy that property from general funds, I believe. That's property on Stabler Road.
Yeah, I know.
Because we were gonna put a sewer plant there, my understanding. I wasn't on the board at the time. But that property the sale of that property could fund something more applicable or agreeable for the outside the shop west, right?
Yes, southeast, yeah, southwest, yeah, sorry.
Or the west side of the township.
This is Mitch. I think this discussion is great, but I was wondering, some things aren't clear to me. At one time, we talked about, say, choosing option 3 or 4 as the ultimate goal, and each of the other options would be steps. You'd start at step, option 1, 1.5, 2, 3. And then we've got the millages. I think we need to know how long each option will take, and also, are the millages that are represented in these charts, is there an incremental millage? That is, if we choose to eventually get option 3, what millage do we start at? Do we start at the millage for option 1 and then increment, or is the millage for option 2 is 2.8 or whatever? It's not clear. I think we have to be very clear about.
To answer your question is whatever millage is proposed to the public, it's an amount sufficient to generate revenue to the highest level that we're going to get to. And then that's why we have the governor in there, the 9 months cash reserve governor, that allows the maximum levy to go up or down on a year-over-year basis, because the millage or the rate, the SAD rate, would be approved each fall by the Board of Trustees.
Public hearing each fall.
So the rate could go up or down, but it could never exceed the maximum authorized levy. If that makes sense.
Yep. Bob?
So to be clear, I'm viewing this as, let's say we approve option 3. And to get there, we can look at the various steps, the various scenarios that are proposed in 1, 1.25, 1, 5, 2, whatever. So it tells the Board of Trustees that if they say, at the same time that they're staffing up Zeeb, they want to get Wagner started, this is what it's going to cost. I'm going to authorize this much of the overall approved millage right now, so they can see what the costs are associated with when they want to put it into the timeline. It's really the Board of Trustees who will be implementing this, and they'll be doing it at the rate that they decide to do it, at the pace they decide to do it. And we're giving them the cost of each step that they choose to implement and when they choose to implement. That's how I looked at it. We say, go for this millage, go for this result, here's some steps to get to it. That's how I'd like to see it presented to the board. And the public would then see that too and understand what we're planning for their future and at what pace.
Some of the documents I provided last week, the spreadsheet, I did my best estimate of how long it would take to attain each step.
Yes.
So there's some of that information in there, and again, it's my best estimate.
Yeah, your timeline's on the top of this.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if it would handicap the board or handcuff the board or handcuff the fire department if we actually spelled out in the ballot language that in 28 we can go to 2.5, and in 30 we can go to 3, and in 33 we can go to 3.5, whatever that step grade is to be able to get us to the ultimate goal, whatever that ultimate goal is. I'm not sure. I hear what you're saying. We're gonna go for the maximum millage, whatever that number is. Let's pull it out of the air. Let's say 4. And we're gonna do that in steps, 1.75, 2.3, 3.9, whatever it is. But do we wanna actually spell that out in the ballot language to give the residents the comfort zone that we're not gonna impose 4 mills in 2023.
That's why I use the number of months of cash reserve, because it can be done in a sentence as opposed to the ramp up or ramp down, maximum authorized each one. First of all, I don't know if it's legal, that's one, but two, is I can see that ballot language is gonna be like this.
Yeah.
So, I think rather than using a list of numbers or millage rates, I think if we just say, as a policy matter, here's the maximum levy, and here's the governor that we can use to go up or down, but never exceed the maximum authorized.
And that governor would be a 9-month reserve in the operating, or whatever the number is.
Pick one,
Right.
I was just reading in the township's policy manual, for use, cash use, and that's where the governor, I got the governor from, is just existing policy. Again, it's a policy, it's a guideline, it's not law.
Right.
So, and if you
Ballot language becomes law.
Pardon me?
Ballot language becomes law.
So, we have to work through those details
Right.
in a clear and transparent way, but with the taxpayers understanding. There is a governor here.
Right.
We can throttle it up or down, but not to exceed.
So, David, these dates, or the timeline that's on here, I'm viewing that as the achievement of that goal, whatever that is. So it's going to take, for option 3, for instance, up to 6.5 years. So that's why it's 2029. That's starting next year. How long will that take to get there? If we don't start next year, we aren't going to get there in 2029. So we don't start imposing that mill rate at that time. We got to start now at a higher millage than we're going to start ramping up the cash reserves in order to pay off the building construction in order to get it to 2029, get it by 2029.
So
I'm actually seeing us starting off at say, maybe not at 4, but at a higher rate than just getting a temporary structure in place or staffing up costs, because we got to build up a little cash so that we can pay for the building construction.
To add context to this proposed timeline, is nothing really happens. We can do planning and non-capital, non-expense related issues, but we don't start until architects and engineers and yada yada ordering equipment. That doesn't start until after the voters approve it, which is either a special in August or in November.
But next year, right?
And it typically isn't, not typically, it won't be, that cash inflow won't come until the fiscal year ensuing after the approval by the election. So in other words, if you approve it in 23, you're not going to start your levy until 24 on the December 24 tax bill. Just to add context to this discussion here. So that's what I said, 4 to 5 years for Station 2. I think that's more realistic, because you're not going to happen until then.
Realistically, the December tax bill is due in early February, so you really don't have the money for even longer.
Well, it's due December 1. It's due and payable February 15th. 14th.
Valentine's Day.
Okay. And the delinquent tax roll doesn't go to the county until the 1st of March.
So the millage, if approved in either August or November of 23, will be on the December's 23 tax bill. And the revenue won't then be
December 24.
You got a year's grace?
Well, this millage, the one that's in place right now, was approved in November and it went on the December bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would think 2023.
So it would be, I mean, at least that's in the history, that's what happened.
Well, you just have to look at what is the enactment date of the special assessment authorization.
Well, and the wording would be that it would be on that year's, whatever it's
Beginning
enacted.
2024.
So it would be on December 2023, which would be payable in February of 2024, which would then be in the 24-25 fiscal year for the fire department.
Okay, all right. Well, we can sort through those details with Donna and
Yeah.
Jessica.
I wouldn't want to speak for the board as, the board has, they make their own decisions. But there's potential that we still have ARPA money that could help seed some architect fees and stuff in the interim.
Yes, in each of the options on the forecast, it assumed 1.6 million ARPA. And you saw where the 1.5 came out. And also the 75,000 came out.
Gotcha. Yeah, that ARPA money exists today in the township's accounts.
Right, exactly.
So in theory, that could get a lot of the behind the scenes work done, get plans done, and it could help bolster that timeline.
Now,
And again, board's discretion.
it would be up to the township board, but could some of that money be used to figure out where, how, and when to house the temporary solution, the 1.25, whatever we're calling it, the medical substation, let's call it that, medical substation. Where could that money be used? That
I'm not sure of.
In one respect, that's almost throwaway money. Because when Wagner is built, theoretically, that medical substation goes away.
Yeah.
So I don't think we want to build, but we might want to renovate, which also is throwaway. It might be, but it might be a 2 or 3 year temporary housing for 2 or 3 years.
Do we have a vehicle if we wanted to do this?
Yes.
So we can place
I can put our
second truck.
put our backup engine down there, sure.
Okay, so we're not talking an ambulance, we're talking the backup engine.
There's various conversations. In that scenario, I would suggest an engine because it meets 100% of our needs in that area versus 60% for an ambulance.
And the ambulance there makes the response time up here worse.
If we gave it the only one, right?
Yeah, and it's 2 years away from another one.
Yep.
That's what I wondered, how long it took. The backup engine would be right now.
So the backup engine is what, 12 years old now, 10 years?
Yes, it's a 2010.
There you go.
Okay. So it's at the point in time where we should start looking to replace it, actually.
Still operable though. It runs, it meets its
Yep.
DFT certifications, it passed its pump test.
As long as we don't have to go into too many dirt roads, we're okay.
Now we're talking road tax.
Let's not go down that
No,
way.
no. All right, we're kind of.
Do we need to find this
Our
place?
field.
Do we need to identify the location for this temporary?
I think we need to identify if one exists and if it's feasible, yeah.
If not, then we don't want to make a recommendation that can't be achieved.
No.
I mean, our recommendation could simply be if possible.
Otherwise,
4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think Ryan has a good suggestion. Maybe Chief, maybe you should call Mark Smith and ask him what, if he has anything, or knows, he has,
Yeah.
strings in the township, he may know. He might be a good call, good place to call, but if he has space right now, he's looking to lease.
Yeah, let me put that on my to-do list. I'll look out and see what requirements we need. And if it's possible for building codes and such.
Yeah, building codes, right, okay.
would HVA want to take over this after we moved out?
Out here, they're generally remote.
Yeah, they typically here in Washtenaw County, there's only one vehicle that has a 24-hour station, not necessarily always there, it's in Chelsea. It's over by the Wellness Center. Mainly here in Washtenaw County, they just do
Minor Perkins.
rotating, yeah, if available. They have certain shift points. They have shift points
Well,
depending
6
on.
years from now, what would they want?
They typically aren't from. So I used to work for them a long time ago, and then the central operations, which is Washtenaw County, they're not necessarily inclined to do the whole 24-hour station thing. costs associated with it, obviously, and stuff like that. But you go to like Jackson County, they mainly have a bunch of 24-hour stations for their ambulance, and same with Monroe County and Lenawee also, I believe. It's just here in Ann Arbor, Washtenaw County, they do a lot of just shift points.
Yeah, I think that's, I don't speak for
them, yeah.
agency, but, you know, I see that Washtenaw County is a busier area. So that ambulance might run, 30 calls in a 24-hour period, which might not be sustainable, which is why they do the 8s or 12s.
When I worked, it was like 2006 or 7, and I would work out in the Chelsea car a lot just because I lived out there and used to work for that fire department. So kind of knew the area a lot easier than trying to figure out the roads in Ann Arbor. There were times we were only there for like 2 hours in a 24-hour shift. So I think that's their reasoning of, because if Jackson got busy, the car would go that way. If Ann Arbor started getting busy, they'd start coming this way. So I think that's probably what, the chief said, I'm speaking for him, is the reason why they didn't do 24 hours, because they're really not there a lot. And it's paying
So
for
the
it.
permit,
It's paying for it, worth it,
the
probably.
bricks and mortar isn't worth it.
For them, no.
So they use the ambulance as their station.
Yeah.
And do they actually sleep in that? I mean.
Yeah, oh yeah,
are they
there's
8 hours?
in Chelsea car was 24-hour shifts.
Okay, what do we have here? 8 hours?
I think they do 12s, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not a 24-hour, okay.
But it all, I know we're kind of going a different way, but they, by however many cars they have available, so if they have 8 cars working and hey, there's 2 calls and IPSI, they kind of just rotate where their coverage is to get better coverage area with what they have.
Let me throw a question out here. We're gonna spend, and pull a number out of the air, $250,000, $250,000 to find a place to put 2 of our guys. Why don't we give HEA $250,000 and have them put somebody here?
Because they won't guarantee, I don't know if they'll guarantee it stays in this township.
Well, if we give them $250,000,
It's a contract. You can offer them a contract, that requires them to agree to the contract.
I mean, to Bob's point.
Contracts have to have an offer.
How
and
does that help
acceptance.
your measurement? How does that help your measurement?
Depends on where they're at.
Yeah,
That's what it
does
comes down
that,
to.
does that even fold into your?
Oh, no,
data?
no, that doesn't fold into my data. They're-
So it does not help your metric.
Okay, it helps the people,
It helps
but it doesn't
them.
help our numbers. Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely correct. I don't track their times at all.
Okay. Well,
My question started off trying to see when we get to that point that we have a Wagner station, what can we expect to do with this renovated property? And if we sell it, somebody's gonna perhaps gut it if it doesn't meet their needs. So that's why I was asking about HEA. Maybe there's another way that we could renovate it with the future sale in mind so that it would be desirable for another outfit. HEA team.
well, let me ask a question. If fire department is about service, fire department is about saving property and saving lives and saving property. You track 1/2 or 1 part of the response to a medical emergency.
Mhm.
And to some respect, that's an artificial number. Because the real number is when does that person get assistance?
Correct, first, yep.
And if that person gets assistance in 3 minutes from HEA and you arrive at 6.5, well, we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist because medical assistance is already there. Now, when HEA gets there in 3 minutes, do they call you and say, don't bother? Or do you
On
continue?
occasion, we always continue.
So-
They may have assessed a person and said, hey, yeah, we're all set, we don't need help, but I don't know how often that happens. It's not too frequent, I don't think.
So when you get there, when HVA has already arrived, and you get there at 6.5 minutes, that's a negative ding on our response time, even though the person has already been rescued and stabilized. And so I'm wondering, are we chasing an issue that may not be as bad as we think?
I don't have the metrics to answer
I
that.
know.
Yeah.
And you don't get told when HVA arrives.
No.
So I will say this too, right? So before COVID and stuff like that, like 2017, 18, there were a lot of times that we would either arrive with HVA at the same time or they would be already there. By how long, have no idea. Since they are struggling with their staff and with like everyone else is, now it has definitely flipped that we beat them more times than anything by at least 5 minutes.
Wow, 5 minutes. And that's even after being late, quote unquote late.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anecdotally, but listening on the radio, I hear agencies get dispatched and report HVA's 15 minutes out with regular. That's not.
I mean, I worked yesterday, and just yesterday, one of HVA, Chelsea had multiple calls going on. And one of their HVA rigs got diverted to a more priority call. And Chelsea got on the radio and said, okay, cool, we'll just transport this one then. Just because they didn't have another ambulance available to send for them. So I think that's happening a lot more. I think Ann Arbor City transported 20 some times last month with their
their last, the report I had to step out last meeting. Chelsea had a list of probably 15 transports for the month. Ann Arbor City, I don't know their time period, but it was significantly more than that.
And the ideal would be have 0 transports because HVA takes care of it.
We wouldn't be discussing an ambulance or rescue if HVA wasn't having problem staffing.
And it's not just the arrival, it's the ability to transport to the hospital.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what that little paragraph solved, but all right.
So there is a need. How about that? Because I think you're saying that are we trying to solve a problem that isn't there? And I think there is.
Okay.
There is that problem.
Okay.
As of right now.
All right.
I think so.
All right.
But that's what you're trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah. If HVA is getting there 3 minutes and we're taking 6 minutes, what's the point? But yeah, it's not happening.
It may happen once or twice.
Like I said, it all depends. I mean, we had a call last night that HVA happened. It was Wagner Rose Drive area. HVA was sitting at Meyer. This happened to be, that's where they were sitting, just because their coverage was good.
So you basically arrived at the same time?
Yep, same time, yep.
And was that under 6 minutes?
I think so. I don't know. It was just for, it ended up being just a gentleman who needed help off the floor. So we didn't use our license sirens and stuff like that, so.
Oh, okay, so are we going with license siren and that type of emergency, and that type of a call?
No, because I mean, the person called and said, hey, my husband just fell and needs help getting up. He's not hurt at all. And so you gauge by what the person who's calling from. Now they said, oh, he's screaming in the background, and that's totally different. But yeah.
Well.
All right, bringing it back. So we'll have a draft paper next week or before. So
it is Thanksgiving.
I'll start working on a draft paper, yes.
Sleep is for wimps.
I agree. Except I like to
sleep is overrated.
Exactly. Anyway, so we have next Wednesday and then the following is December 1. And that's when we have our approved.
Next Wednesday is the 30th.
Well,
so whatever, the December 7th, then I guess it would be, right?
well,
Is that our last meeting?
well, technically, according to our charge, but or to
Yeah, we're supposed to be done by next week.
December 1st. But then again, we don't have our presentation to the board until January 17th. So we have another 6 weeks to prepare for that.
Yeah, but
However, they did want to have that time period to
study.
review what was being.
Yeah, they want it sooner, not later, I think.
Right, exactly. That's why I was saying
Yeah.
we were gonna have a deliverable by that last meeting, which is either next Wednesday or the following Wednesday.
Well, next Wednesday, you said is the 30th?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, 30th. So that means December 1st is the following Friday.
I will get done as much as I can.
Okay, good.
Is there room for us to meet one more time after the 1st?
I would think so.
I'm not saying that, because where we stand now, will your proposal be a be all and end all for all of us? I mean, it's gonna take some time to hassle out.
But I expect there'll be a few revisions before this committee approves the final document.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
What's next on your agenda?
Next on the agenda is old business. We don't, that's all we've been discussing basically, is old business. So, it's all old. And we don't have any new business, so I guess the next item is closing public comment. Anybody in the room? None?
Hi, I have some questions, if that's okay.
Yep.
You want me to sit here or there?
Oh, you,
Come on up.
come on up. You can stand at the podium if you want.
I do that too much in my day job.
Okay.
So, thanks. So, big picture, is the issue like which facilities, which equipment, and which personnel do we need to have to kind of support a growing township? Both, buildings, equipment, whether that's trucks or ambulances or like equipment, and then personnel.
Yes.
And like, how many do we need? And how much of it do we need and where do we put it?
That's the key.
Right, okay. And then, is there currently a fire millage now?
Yes.
And
1.35.
1 point, how much?
35.
And when does it expire? 28?
2028.
Okay.
It's renewed each year. We have to renew it each year.
You mean at the ballot?
No, at the board table.
At the board.
The chief has to come and say, I need 1.35.
I assume that's pro forma.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, where does the 6-minute time frame come from? Wait,
I will say if the board authorizes a higher millage rate to build up to this, it won't be pro forma anymore. I'll be justifying expenditures every year on associated millage
Okay,
rate.
the current one is pro forma.
That's right. So, where does the 6-minute turnaround response time
So
come from?
I pull that from NFPA standards, industry standards. It's a consensus guideline. Provides a certain amount of time when we receive a call to.
So that's a national standard based on size of the township, ruralness, just like, is it the same for a dense city as it is for Webster Township? Or where does that come from?
Yeah,
Could it be the same for Detroit, same for Scio, same for LA?
I think there, don't quote me, I think there's a difference between volunteer and career departments. Volunteer has a non-full-time staffed stations have a different time frame to get to calls than a staffed.
They have a cushion built in.
And I don't know what it is at all.
And you recently bought, I don't know if you call it an ambulance, but a life support or a lifeline, or I don't know what the right nomenclature is for it.
We call it a rescue, but it's an ambulance.
Okay, so is that for basic life support, advanced life support?
It's licensed at the basic level.
And is that based on the personnel that we have to man it? Or is that based on the equipment that's in that rig?
Both.
Okay.
And with one more, can that vehicle be used for either or both advanced or basic life support?
Yes, it's the first component is equipment that we need to purchase for it. Cardiac monitors, some other items, and the second component is having trained paramedics to staff it.
So right now it's basic because of personnel and equipment.
Yep.
But it's something that could become advanced based again on personnel and training and equipment.
Yes.
Okay.
With them, there are some hoops. To get through.
Yeah, so
it can't just happen.
No.
Overnight.
This is kind of big picture.
Big picture, yes, it can happen.
It isn't wasted.
Yeah.
And can that do transport?
Yes,
Okay.
we've equipped it to transport in the event we need to.
Okay. And look, I don't have it in front of me, but I kind of see it in my mind's eye. You have this chart with 1, 2, 5, 1, 5, 2, 3, all these things. And it looked like the stuff on the left, oh, thank you, that helps. These, is it like 1, 2, 5 and 1, 5? The 1 series don't involve a new facility, a new station, is that correct?
Correct.
And then when we start getting in, option 2 does, option 3 does, and option 4 does.
Correct.
Okay. So option 1 is kind of personnel or personnel and equipment?
Personnel. All the option ones, I think we have enough equipment to accomplish.
Okay. And then I saw somewhere the meeting, and maybe it's on a narrative portion, the 2 in, 2 out.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So my OSHA regulations require us, if we're gonna send personnel into an IDLH atmosphere, immediately dangerous to life and health, a building that's on fire or a gas leak inside a building, two people have to go in together. Two people have to remain outside, prepared to rescue them if something.
Does that mean we need to have 4 people in the station?
Yes.
Or we have to rely on support from Dexter, Ann Arbor, or other, you know?
Either or. Yep.
Either or.
And I assume that we have agreements, partnership agreements with
all of them.
adjoining townships? Okay.
And that, if someone is trapped inside a home, the 2 in, 2 out is null and void. We'll go in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's just for when we.
Like commercial?
Commercial, residential, you know.
Okay.
Even if you assume, like, so say there's, middle of the night, you show up to a house fire and there's 4 cars sitting there, you're gonna assume people are inside. So you will go in without the 2 in, 2 out. Now, if you show up and there's no cars there and neighbors have been knocking, stuff like that.
Different story.
Yep.
So,
And one more.
okay.
Mutual response is guaranteed, but the time frame is not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, they'll get there when they can.
Yep.
With what equipment they have available.
Okay, all right. So it could be that there might not be unanimity on this body as to the best approach to take, right? And ultimately, it goes to the board, and we need to have unanimity to put something.
No,
Need 4 votes.
So you need 4 votes.
We need to have majority.
Yes.
You're right. We need to have majority to put something before the voters, and ultimately, it's up to the voters to say, yes, we like this plan, no, we don't like this plan.
Right.
Um,
My goal would be to come to the board with a proposal and not a smorgasbord.
but it would be, you would be told, I believe, you should be told what we voted, the majority of us voted for,
Yes.
and what the alternate positions were. I don't think that
Yes.
we should hide
Oh, no, not at all.
a defeated position,
now,
because
is that
you
because
might
your name
like
is
it.
Hyde?
Say it again.
Is that because your name is Hyde?
No, but I think that everybody's position, if they really believe it, should be put before you so that you see it.
No,
But it's got the recommendation.
No, I this, yeah, I have it on my phone, but you have it.
Oh, this other one.
There's a blue one.
It's the same one.
Yeah. So.
Sorry, how to take that back.
That's right.
This is why I wanted a 4-hour board meeting, to talk to the board
No.
about the multiple issues, multiple options, the issues with each one, pros and cons.
That's an extra.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, we've had, this is our 5th meeting. Each meeting is going at least 3 hours, and we're still learning. So I don't expect to go to the board and say, here, you must do this, and it's gonna cost $4 million.
So which of these will require a change in the millage, a new millage?
Any of them.
Oh,
All of them. So something is going, you're asking the board to take something to the voters. And it just depends on,
What you want to achieve as an end goal.
right.
because these are Act 30, is it 133 or 33?
33.
Act 33s are typically 10 years. And they have to be renewed every year. So we could ask for hypothetically
Up to next.
up to 4 mils, but the first year, you're only gonna do 1.75.
So in the past, have we asked for all of it every year? The 1.35?
So prior to the 1.35, it was 0.9.
My understanding is yes, we've.
Yeah, we've always asked for it
So we've always had a fire millage.
No,
since 2008,
right,
before it was
from the
general fund. 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. is when
So
I-
2008 was like version number 1?
Yeah, 0.9.
0.9,
And
the
then-
first one.
And then when was the second one? The subsequent one?
18?
No, 19.
Was it 19?
First levied in 20.
Okay, it was the 1.35.
Uh-huh.
And has it always been fire exclusively?
Mhm.
Okay. And has it always had the support of the voters?
Mhm.
Overwhelming, close call?
I think the one in 2019 or 20, whenever the 1.35 was like 70, 30, 65.
You remember what the 1.9?
Yeah, it was well before my time.
Okay.
So on the second line of the shaded, Mark, did you put this together, by the way?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for all your work and other.
There's a sheet 2 to that too, by the way.
Yeah, so it's the 1.78, the 258, the 2584, is that right? So in other words, if we want a fire station on the southeast side, somewhere on Wagner, whether it's on 242 or whether it's somewhere near the funeral home, that corner right there.
So the township owns property.
Right. Is that gonna be a 2.854?
If I may.
I'm looking at Mark's,
I'm trying to figure out where you're getting the 2.8.
This line, I see.
Oh, right here,
Or
2.854.
payroll.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's just payroll. I'm just gonna clarify that.
No, I see that.
Yeah.
That's not a millage.
That's
Yeah.
only one piece of that spreadsheet that I just needed to make a couple corrections on the top.
So in other words, what would the ask to the public be in millage for options one, for the 6 options you have?
Market and somebody will get it up. It's got documents.
And you gotta be careful with this now, because say, just take option 4, whatever Mark's showing you for sheet 2 that has the bottom line, that includes all the rest. It isn't in addition to option 3 and option 2 and option 1.
And it's not like it's a menu where you pick this or that. It's additive.
You want,
It's additive.
well, it is a menu, it's an all-inclusive.
But it's
You get
not like
everything up to it.
You're not, it's not like you're picking out draws of life in here for this amount and
That's
get your
right.
ambulance here. And, yeah, I get it.
This is the full. There's a lot of moving pieces that make up that millage.
You had to ask her.
Yeah. That wasn't confusing enough.
It's a long question.
Okay, so the bottom line to be put forward to voters is at the bottom
Correct.
approximately, is that right?
Yeah, it 2.7, yes, 2.729 is option 1, 3.4.
Okay.
It's additive in nature.
Is that
I think that's
includes
that's more.
the current mill?
Includes the 1.35.
And Mark, you want to take a look at the last one for option number 2? Because it appears to go up, but then it really goes up, then it goes down, then it goes up. I'm just wondering if that's
All right. Option 2 is the first option with the greatest amount of capital spent.
This is building.
Oh, that includes capital. I see.
It's land, building improvements, all the equipment necessary to man and operate the new Wagner facility, all right? And so you're all in there. And then 3, when it goes down to 3.9, it should be 3 plus the 11.
okay.
Wait a minute.
Because all the improvements in 2 are also in 3, plus 3 has a little bit more spent. And the other thing is this has to be corrected because the chief.
This is a draft, I get it.
Yeah, the chief pointed out that on the employment side, third and fourth lines down where you have 18, 12, 18, 18. And then you have on the total hires, 12, 18, 18, 42, 63.
That's it.
That is incorrect. It's correct numbers now are 12, 18, 18, 12, 15, 15, 18, and a total of 45 for the last.
But this is just a draft, and I'm sure you guys will kind of talk about it and tweak it and adjust it as.
That's what I said earlier, where that he and I have to have a one-on-one to clean all this up.
But at the end of the day.
So your employment numbers, where I was going with that, the employment numbers on your bottom line on the last page there, those will, both 2 and 3 will, and 4, those will all go down. Because I've got to take that redundant payroll out.
And then, so with the 2, let's say it's option 1, Zeeb, and let's say that's accurate, that the total payroll operating and loan payout millage is 2.7, right? Let's say, would that would not be in addition to the 135, that would be in lieu of?
It includes.
Yeah.
1.35.
Go to the very top one, 0.343.
I see that.
All right, that is just payroll and capital and operating expenses.
Okay.
All right, if you want to use a millage to pay off the 1.5, then the total would be 2.729.
In other words, some of it could be taken out of the general fund budget potentially.
Short answer, yes. Or you could just forego the note. The one, you know, the interest-free principal only note of the 1.5. You can just extinguish that. Then the taxpayers won't have to pay for the 1.5 a second time.
They've already paid for it.
What they already paid for.
Our position is,
Yeah.
So, and what's that loan?
It
What's the
was a
note?
renovation of the existing building.
Okay.
The original budget, at least the budget forecast that I worked on in 2016, it was the renovation cost was 1.6. The actual cost was 3.6?
3.5, ballpark, 3.5.
3.5 million.
3.4.
So the
The scope
1.5,
expanded too.
pardon me?
The scope expanded
Yeah,
too.
so the 1.5 is for that amount that was unbudgeted that the 1.35 would cover. It just won't cover it.
The whole amount was unbudgeted.
Yeah,
We had no capital plan, we had no budget for it.
so,
And when was that loan?
Last year?
2021.
Yeah,
2021. Right, 21, 20?
Sounds
yeah.
right.
Yeah. November of 2020, November of 2020 is when we approved the second phase, and that's when the 1.5 came into effect.
Yeah, yep, that's right.
I was still on the board.
John, for your answer.
Is it a note that's being quote unquote paid off, or are there fund transfers?
yes, yes.
There's not fund transfers, but it's being paid off.
Okay, what do you
It's
write
been
a
a-
check every month or something?
No, it's been applied, the total balance has been applied to my fund reserve,
Okay,
which has me at a negative fund reserve.
okay.
And I'm working my way out of that hole every year.
how's that for a deal?
Because
I'm not an accountant.
And that was not what the 2020 board approved.
It was done after that.
Yeah, $75,000 a year for 20 years.
But it's something you must have asked for them to approve it, right? It's something you wanted to do or
No,
wrong?
They proposed it.
They proposed it. I agreed to the repayment schedule of 75,000 a year. No one had any knowledge that it would take my, I don't know, 1.3 million, 1.2 million, $950,000 fund balance and make it a negative number.
All right, so at some point, the voters need to be asked, so the board needs to decide, what do we do about the money we quote unquote lent the fire department, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's a policy question. And then another policy question is how much fire protection can we afford, do we want, is appropriate, given the standards and the dictates of what's needed? And then how do we do that? Do we do it in 1 year? Or do we do it in 20 years? Do we do it personnel, then equipment? Do we do it in structure? And what's the ask that's gonna be put forward to the voter in millage? And like, okay, how much is a house in Scio? Is it 200,000, 300,000, 400? I mean, it varies, obviously.
In the Ann Arbor
We
School
actually
District is 189 and the Dexter School District is 183. So roughly less than 200,000.
Are you talking the average value of a
Average
house?
taxable value.
Taxable.
Okay, so it's maybe 200K to make it round numbers?
Yep.
Sure.
So if it's round numbers, what is it right now in millage, just for fire, and it's 135? And Brian, it looks like you got the
270, $200,000 home at 1.35 is $270.
$270, and let's say we want the Cadillac plan, not that you.
Five.
What's that?
5, I think, is the highest number.
5 is the highest number to go to 1,000.
So,
But that would go over 10 years. It would go to 5 over 10 years.
Yeah, we can't do that today. There's timeline for hiring, there's timeline for building cost, get a building company.
so you would ramp it up.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Maybe 2 year increments.
and then what would be helpful for me, and maybe because I'm slower than most, is to like, what's a little summary of option one? Option is like, what is option?
I've got a slide for each of those for you.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want that in advance? I could email that
Yeah, I think getting information in advance of a meeting and part of the packet so that the community can digest it, ask questions.
I'm
It's
hoping to have
always
that
helpful.
full packet to you by the 15th.
Yeah, so I just came here to
Do you want that in advance of that 15th date?
are you talking January 15th?
No,
Or December?
I want the whole packet to you December 15th, that'll have that question answered.
And our
I can
pack,
email you those slides today when I get back to the office if you personally want them.
I'd email the whole board.
hang on a minute, but you gotta tweak it first, folks. You gotta make
You
your
gotta
corrections.
clean all this up.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
send us what.
But I can articulate the options if that's appropriate.
Yeah, without money attached, you want this, what the service levels are, and then we can put a price on it.
Each
Is
option.
that what you're saying?
Hang on.
Okay.
Almost feel like I'm under examination, so.
Oh, this is nothing. Wait till we get to the public hearing, just kidding, you're not.
You'll definitely want them to.
No. So, yeah, get it to us, make sure you make all your changes and then, get it to us in advance, please and thank you, so that it can be part of the packet that goes out, so we can have it and absorb it and come up with questions, please and thank you. All right.
Also, John, there's probably something Chief can probably email you too, is that there's been 2 studies done on the fire department. One was in 2015.
By whom?
One was in 2015 by the former fire chief and Carlisle Wortman. And then 2000. No, it was Carl Farch.
Okay.
And then when was the ESCI study?
2018?
Which the township paid around $30,000 or $40,000 for.
There's a Servicing Consulting International.
So that's outside, okay. Okay.
Those are actually both available on the website. If you go to sadtownship.org, Community Fire Department, it'll be on the left-hand side.
All right, no, I appreciate you guys,
One thing, you were shaking your head when John said something about a policy decision.
I thought you were saying that you have to go to the public for the 1.5 million.
Oh, no.
No, we don't. No, that's a board.
Internal.
That's a board decision, like, hey, we were counting on this money, hey, this is bait and switch, they said they're gonna pay it back, now they wanna get out from under this debt. You know, those are the tensions and the push and pull, and that decision potentially. And then there's like, okay, that impacts then how much we have to go to the public and ask for. Can we ask for less from the public if we forgive that? No, is what the takeaway.
That's the bottom line, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm clear. And then okay, department, okay, public, here's what you get out of this. If you give us more money, twice as much, 50% more, 3 times more, however it is, here's what you get in exchange for that. And that's just the summary.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think I've exceeded my 3 minutes. You gotta get your timer fixed.
Also, real quick, John, I looked up the Washington County election results in 2008. It was 70.18% said yes. In 2019, it was 70.63.
Okay. Yeah, no, fire millages are popular. But a threefold is another.
It's a big story.
Just that theory. Okay. Thanks, Mark, for all the numbers. Do I take this or leave it with you?
You're welcome to take it off.
Knowing that it's a draft. Thanks.
Yes.
Okay, anyone else in the room want to speak?
The guy, I took all the space.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Terry, anyone online want to speak?
I'm not seeing any hands up.
Really? Wow.
They're absorbing.
Wait,
Too soon.
Rob,
Jillian,
come on, Rob. You're letting me down.
Jillian, you're.
Yeah, thank you. David, I didn't want to disappoint you in a public, missing a public comment. So I was thinking of the Wagner Lib area that you were kind of brainstorming, a temporary place, maybe businesses or whatnot. And this is just a long shot idea that, popped into my head. Vestigard has a home and a barn not too far away from, we just made that deal with them, and I don't know their plans. So this is just an idea, but, maybe there's an option, or that could be, the barn could be used for temporary fire truck. And then there's a house that would house the firefighters. Now, this is just a kind of a crazy idea, but it may be worth a look into. Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. Anyone else?
Rob, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Rob. Anyone else? All right. Going once? Going twice?
Thank you.
Recording stopped.
Oh, Ryan's gonna come back to it.